Stream 1, Stream 2. Stream 1 is go. Facebook. So anyway, what do you feel you're achieving with DuckDuckGo?
Well, nobody's tracking any of my looking-ons when I go on websites now.
Because DuckDuckGo says that it's private.
And I don't know that... Oh, come on. I got to run the crawl here. Cut. But this is the thing people have to realize. Just like Amazon Web Services,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, DuckDuckGo still has to go through Google.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not fair.
And... Oh, that is not what I wanted. And we are on the screen.
Okay. This is Friday, January 22nd. And this is Uneducated, where you don't have to be educated to think seriously and honestly, rationally about truth. And as long as you're willing to find truth, you can find it, and you don't have to be educated to do that. So we are here today to talk to you about a few things, but one thing in particular is the Word of God. And so we're going to make that the highlight today. But if for some reason you woke up today thinking that you were living in a different time or a different world, you're not alone. I think that people all over the country and probably in the world have been woke up to the fact that they either have everything they want now, or they think they have everything they want now, or people have woke up and say that they have absolutely nothing that they want now. And so the world is divided, our country is divided, and we're going to try to bring some sanity to the whole thing and talk about what God has to say about that. So, Matt, you're back. You've been gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What have you been doing with those 2 weeks, man?
Finding myself, Catchy.
That's good.
I've learned to knit.
Uh-huh.
You know, I think the simple things in life. Nah, I had the Rona. I was Rona-fied.
Okay.
So that's all over now. I mean, that was a good time. I was kind of like, well, I haven't done that yet. Let's get that knocked off the list.
Uh-huh.
So that's done.
And you were able to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And thank God, you guys are all good.
No, as a smoking, drinking, coffee, drinking diabetic, I should have died, but I'm here.
Well, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
We're thankful for that.
Yes, we are.
And the family, the parents got back all right?
Yep, parents are back in Montana.
Very good.
Families were all pretty healthy at this time, so...
Good.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. And I see that you, in one sense, have survived the elections and the inauguration. It looks like you're sane. It looks like you're emotionally.
Well, do I appear? I had the audio on for the camera. That probably sounded bad. Do I appear different? Do I look different?
No, actually, that's what I'm saying. I guess that's what I'm saying is that
I was hoping I was going to look different because I'm now firmly seated in the hands of science. Did you know that?
I did know that.
It's not about politics anymore.
No.
Look, we're going to let science be science, and I kind of woke up feeling really good about that.
Yeah, it is.
Especially, self-contradicting, hypocritical science. I really love that.
Yeah, I do too. And so that's one of the things I think we're going to talk about today, and that's this. That it's so interesting because the Bible tells us that we are not to put our hope or our trust in kings or princes or the strength of the leg of the horse or chariots, but our trust and our hope is to be in the Lord. So The issue with the church today is that we are pushing, we are really pushing the idolatry thing as if it's still godly and a good thing. And so we tend to put our trust in and we tend to worship the things of this world and the people of this world as if they can save us, they can do something to help us. And it's not as if people can't do good things. We understand all that stuff. And so before, someone tries to beat us up about, thinking that, hey, nobody can do anything good, that's not what we're saying here. But we have crossed a line in the world as well as in the church where too many people are putting their trust and their hope in a political figure, a person, an entertainer. Have you ever seen, you see the concerts where people are literally grasping to try and just touch the leg of the person singing,
Yeah.
That's been going on for years, but that's how we are, we put our hope in that. And so idolatry is alive and well in the world as well as in the church. And so Matt and I were talking this morning and we said, what's really strange is that the new president has come in, President Biden, and he's signed a bunch of executive orders in the name of unity. He's going to unify the country, but yet he's signing a bunch of executive orders to overturn what half the country
75 million voters.
what half the country really wanted before that the other president, Trump, had put in place. And yet at the same time, Trump, when he came in, he did the same exact thing. He signed a bunch of executive orders to overturn what the Obama administration had done. And so we're in this place where, okay, if we're going to come to unity, if we're going to come to any sense of harmony, you're going to have to get back to truth, like absolute truth. And there's only one place I know where
not who defines the terms truth.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And there's only one place I know where there's absolute truth, and the standard of truth is always the same and never changes, and that's the person of Christ. That's God himself and his word. So I want to read this to you, Matt, and then I want us to kind of break down some things, and we're just going to talk. We're not going to talk politics, science, all that stuff, but it's going to come in probably to play here. But we're going to talk the church, we're going to talk everything, but it's just this one scripture text. And this is what Paul wrote to Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 3. But realize this, that in the last days difficult times will come. For men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, malicious gossips, without self-control, brutal, haters of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to a form of godliness, although they have denied its power. Avoid such men as these. So I'm just going to stop there, and Matt, maybe you want to jump in, but before I let you jump in, this is just the one thing I want to say about that text, and that's this, and that is that the church is in trouble when this list identifies a lot of us who are a part of the church.
Yeah, absolutely. It's church hunters. We've talked about this before.
We have.
Yeah. And that's the unfortunate thing. But I don't know that it comes to any other end when we glorify man above God, then you get what we got.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done.
Right.
We've either put a politician, at the forefront and said they have the answers, or we've put science and scientists, lifted them up. Either way, it's not Christ. And, on top of that, I'm waiting on my Instacart order. Hopefully I can beat Instacart home before I get my Walmart order, because Walmart order is running late. And
That's nice.
I'm going to have to get chicken nuggets from McDonald's for the kids. And this is what we do.
Yeah.
We shop.
You're right.
Our existence now is shopping.
Mm-hmm.
and staying at home watching television.
Yeah.
I just heard a statistic, and I don't remember what the number is, but how many more people are spending how many more hours in front of the television now?
Mm-hmm.
Because there is nothing else. There is nothing else to do. I guess we could read our Bibles.
Mm-hmm.
We could, make a wicker chair in our garage or something. I don't know. But a lot more people are just watching television, and we shop. We think about what we're going to buy this week and order.
Right.
And that's what we live in.
Right.
We don't care about serving our fellow man. We don't care about serving Christ. We don't care about spreading the gospel. We're worried about staying healthy,
Right.
making sure we eat,
Right.
and what's on Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah. Or right now media.
Or right now. Or
Which is what Northeast Community has done for our people. We've made a subscription there for them to be able to use that.
of course.
Yeah, of course. So when I read through this list, if we were to look at the world at large, and we've just come through this major debacle of an election and all of this stuff that's going on. And so, of course, there are some people that are very happy, some people that are disappointed, and some people are like, it doesn't matter as long as I can keep my Netflix and I can keep my order there, I'm fine. It doesn't really matter who's running the country or what it's happening as long as I can have what I have. But with that said then, so when I look at whether it's politics, whether it's entertainment, I struggle with this, and Matt, maybe you can just speak into this a little bit, because when I just read that list that Paul talked about, I see a corruption that is at such a level in politics, in entertainment, across the board. I see corruption at such a level that I think people are blinded to the fact that someone can claim to be a Christian, someone can claim to, or someone can quote a scripture text, or someone can sing a song like Amazing Grace or whatever that is, and we just automatically go, they must be a good person. They must be a Christian. And yet, their character and the things they do are like, this whole list is evident in what they do. And I think it's time that the church stand up and start calling on God to transform us, and then calling out sin and exposing it, because we are living in a time frame where good is evil and evil is good, and we're okay calling it that. And I think we're in trouble in the church as well as in the world as a whole. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think you're exactly right. I was just thinking something. Sorry, we had an echo, so I turned off all the audios for all the cameras.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's gone. Excuse me. I think you're exactly right, and I don't know what's going to fix that. So it's funny. We had started on this conversation at breakfast time about the Amazing Grace, and so there was this woman who works in a hospital, and she went viral on a video singing Amazing Grace to all the people who were doctors, and they were like in a break room or a central, like, I don't know if it was the desk area, a nurse's station, I'm not sure. Long story though, short version, she goes to Washington for the inauguration to sing Amazing Grace. Or it was the day before the inauguration when they lit the reflecting pool, maybe that night before.
Okay.
Because, in uniting our country and giving us healing, our new president had like a memorial service the night before he was sworn in.
Okay.
At the reflecting pool.
All right.
And so I think she sang Amazing Grace for that. And I fail to see, knowing the words of Amazing Grace, the connection of why you sing that for dead people. And I know we do it with bagpipes without words a lot. But is there a connection between Amazing Grace and dead people? Because I thought Amazing Grace would be a song for someone alive singing about the salvation of God.
It is.
Okay. So she goes on to describe why this performance is important to her, and the best she can muster is, it's about God, and it's a positive message,
Right.
and a bunch of gobbledygook.
Yeah. Well, I've even heard over the last couple weeks people saying our prayers are with those who have died from this disease and those who have been left behind. Well, the last time I checked in the scriptures, and I'm not trying to criticize someone just because they don't know the scriptures, but you can't pray for dead people unless, of course, you're from the persuasion of like Catholicism, where you think that somehow you can pray people out of a place called purgatory, which the Bible does not speak to. So unless that's where you're coming from, there's no really sense on praying for someone who's already passed.
Right. Well, and the whole reason we had the Reformation, if you gave enough money to the Catholic Church, you could buy them out of hell.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's exactly true. Yeah.
And so we're back in that time though.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're back. There's a lot of parallels between the Catholic Church in the Dark Ages and where we are now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's going to take. I'm afraid that it's going to take a real hard landing on the pavement for the church, and the people of the world to snap out of this.
Right. So let me just read the first part of verse 2 again, and then I want to just make a point here and let you kind of run into that. But for men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant. But I want to stop there. Lovers of self and lovers of money. So for instance, you go back to the Catholic Church. I remember my dad when he told this story about how at 14 he was driving milk truck. He wasn't supposed to be. He didn't even have a license, but he was driving milk truck. And he would deliver milk every day to this one older lady. And he noticed the second time he went there, her milk was still on the door, so he picked the milk up and was going to drop the new one off, but instead, I don't know if he knocked on her door or whatever. But however he found out that she couldn't buy milk for herself because her son or somebody had died, and she was sending that money, her milk money, she was sending to the Catholic Church to pray this person out of purgatory into heaven.
Yeah.
So that's the Catholic Church scandal of money and that kind of stuff. And then you have the scandal in the evangelical church where this prosperity gospel, where people are giving. I mean, the church is such a wealthy organization.
Yes.
And yet that money is used so little to actually spread the gospel and to help people. And then on top of that, you have a political arena where it's all about corruption of money and people with earmarks and what do they call that stuff inside of a bill that, like, if they're trying to sign a bill, they call it...
there's pork.
Pork, that's it. I was thinking pig, something with a pig, but pork. So there's pork and all that kind of stuff in there. So you've got all this corruption in the political arena, and yet we want to believe that there's someone good up there that's not, taking a chunk of that illegally or in a bad way and not loving the money. And then on top of that, you have the entertainment industry that's all about money. And then on top of that, you have the average American person who just says, if I could just have a piece of that, just a little bit. And on top of that, too, you have then the science and the medical field and all that stuff, and just tons and tons of money being filtered through. And yet, for some reason, we go, oh, we're not in love with money.
Right. But yet it drives all of our major organizations.
Drives everything.
Yeah. Yeah, like they talk about the wealth of the federal government. I mean, if we could put our arms around how much money the federal government or the world governments have.
Right.
Okay. And if we could get our arms around how much money the Catholic Church has, so I was listening to this is just a fun thing that I want to throw in because I'm remembering it. So Rabbit Trail.
Okay.
The Michael Knowles and the Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire had a Who's a Better Catholic challenge.
Okay.
And so they're answering trivia. And my wife goes, "You're a better Catholic than these two yo-yos." One of the questions was, who has an observatory, and where is it located? And I'm like, the Vatican, and it's in Tucson.
Yeah, right.
And neither of these two guys knew it, and I'm like, I'm rattling that off.
Yeah.
You know?
Mount Graham.
Mount Graham, yeah. And the Lucifer telescope.
Yep.
And, you know, think about that as a testimony, bringing it back around, here we come, to how much money they have. And that is just, that's one example, okay? And then you're right. The evangelical church, the Protestant church, is sitting on its pile of wealth.
Yep.
And I think to bring this all in a full circle, this is a giant mess because both churches, all the churches, have squandered it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We are not managing it well.
Right.
And so we are corrupted.
Right.
Just the same as Washington is corrupted with their money.
Yeah. And I think it was, we were talking this morning, and you had made the comment about how God's people back in the Old Testament, they desired a king.
Yeah.
And that is where they started their downfall,
Right.
when they wanted a king to be like all the other nations. And now here we are, even as a Christian people, we're looking to someone else to fix it. And how are they fixing it? They're going to try to throw $1.9 trillion and give people another $1,400.
Yeah, they're all throwing money at it. It says the echo is back. I don't know what's echoing.
So probably every time, probably when you put that camera that you have there, Matt, that's on you, that Linux, when you brought that in the first time, you probably did not turn the audio to none. And so every time you click
So
from that,
even though I've turned the audio off on it now,
well, every time you click yourself back in, it'll automatically turn your audio
so
back on.
do I have to make a new camera?
You will.
Okay.
So you can just take it out, yeah.
I'm going to do that. You go ahead and go back to your point.
Yeah, and then you can just go down to audio and make sure you click none so it's not using that.
When I bring the camera in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I think the church desperately needs a revamping, a new mindset on what it means to truly be a follower of Jesus Christ. And to be a follower of Jesus Christ is not to say, okay, I like this Jesus dude. He has made me feel really good because he's cleansed me of my past sins and I feel forgiven and I'm going to go to heaven when I die. But Jesus said things like this: if you love the world, you make yourself an enemy of God. And if you're going to live for this life, you're going to lose your life. But if you lose your life for my sake, you will gain it. And I think Christians need to start really thinking rationally and seriously about what Jesus said if we say we're going to follow him. And I'm not trying to be a Pharisee here. I'm not trying to be a legalist, because I understand that we all struggle. But my goodness, why don't we struggle with going after and striving after to be the person Jesus created us to be, instead of saying, hey, I'm a Christian, but I'm just going to keep loving the world and loving money and loving pleasure and going after that stuff because God's okay with that. He wants me to have a happy life. And that really frustrates me about the church today.
It is frustrating. But it's what fills the pews and that's the thing that brings the money in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for lack of a better whatever, that's just the sad fact of it.
It is, and I don't know, man.
I guess the thing that makes me sick about it is then we all congratulate ourselves on how wonderful we are. We then turn around and are proud of what we donate to the church and the time we spend in the church, and you know, but yet those things are happening at smaller and smaller numbers every week, right?
Right.
Like there's a lot of irony there.
Right.
And because the motives and the motivation's all wrong. But going back to Kings,
Yeah.
and Samuel and the time, like God was like, you don't want this, and they said, yes, we do. You don't want this, yes, we do.
And he told them exactly what would happen to their wives, to their children, everything that would happen.
Yeah.
Their property.
Yeah, and they did it anyway.
They did it anyway.
Okay. And I think there's a lot of parallels into what we're doing here in this country over our ruler,
Mm-hmm.
who was never supposed to be the person that he is.
Right.
And, you know, it's like we were talking this morning, you can't, you know, we have 75 million people who are worried about their rights, worried about being free, yet they're worried about their stuff. Or they want the $600 that we're going to get for the Rona.
Right.
And you can't be in love. You can't be in love with this world and in love with God. And that's where we are.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to love both. And myself included. I mean, I don't think any of us are different. And I think that's the hard part. You know, everybody's talking about this civil war. When they go after our guns, that's when we're really gonna fight. Maybe not.
Right.
Maybe not.
No.
We're all gonna lay down.
Yeah.
Just like they did in Britain.
Uh-huh.
When they came for the guns in Britain, they let them take them.
Yeah.
Why? Because I don't want to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit in trees. So I'm listening to Alex Jones talk to the guy who's the head of Oath Keepers. Have you ever listened to that guy?
Oath?
Oath Keepers?
No. Uh-uh.
So they're the group that went out to the Bundy Ranch and fought off the federal government in Oregon at the Bundy Ranch.
Okay.
Okay? And that's what it took. It took a bunch of militiamen from around the country to go stand up to the federal government and push them away.
Uh-huh.
That's what it's going to take to keep our guns here. And he knows it. And so he's doing an interview with Alex, and he's like, so listen, you need to organize in your communities, you need to have your old men guard your homes, and you need to take your younger men and have them advance out. He goes, it's exactly what they did during the Revolutionary War. Oh, you got the Minutemen, and you put your younger people and advance them out further and further. Get to know your sheriff, work with your sheriff. He's talking about a military organization within a county. It's wonderful. It's what we should do, right? He's like, get on your damn radios, get on your CBs, have a way to talk to each other. It's no different than Paul Revere. And he's going into this whole thing, and I'm like, I don't want to sit in the woods. I don't want to be cold.
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to get guns and fight for guns.
Yeah. And you didn't sign up to be a part of a militia, right?
No.
You just wanted to have them to shoot and to have fun and to hunt and whatever,
Yeah,
right?
I guess that's the thing. So the Second Amendment is there to protect us from the government.
Right.
But we've turned it into a status symbol, something to own. It is a tool for, it is a sport, it's fun.
Right.
And we take them hunting. But we don't really think of them in the terms of defending ourselves from our government.
Yeah.
And again, we love ourselves so much. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of people sacrificing
Right.
when it comes down.
Right. Right.
But we're going to do that with the Bible. When they come around for the Bibles, everybody's going to shout.
Yeah, and see, I think unless the church wakes up, and I'm not talking about this statement where they're talking about people are woke now. This is different. If the church doesn't actually wake up and come alive, you're exactly right. People will lay down their Bibles and they will say, okay, I won't talk about homosexuality because scientifically it's not true, because scientifically they're born that way and you can't tell somebody that's born, or whatever science is going to try and prove when it comes to that agenda. There has to be a standard and an absolute truth. And I believe that God and his living word, Christ Jesus, and his spirit and his written word are where the standard lies. That's the absolute truth. And that's what I live by. And there is no contradiction in that. The only problem is it causes me to have to obey, and it causes me to have to change some things in my life. And most people don't like that.
Well, yeah, anytime I have to see, I'm not really, you can't hear me. This microphone is shut off. I think it died. Check 1, 2. Batteries are dying on my microphone. Okay, so,
Do you want me to get you batteries?
no, I can get batteries. I'll finish this up. What was I going to say?
How are they hearing you if your batteries are dead?
I turned it on, but the light's red.
Oh, okay.
My microphone died on me.
Gotcha.
So, we got rid of the echo, and now my microphone is dying. I hope we're wrong, but I don't think that we are. And I think it's the symptoms of what we're talking about are going to give us the result that we're talking about. And ultimately, it's going to be our faces hitting the pavement that are going. That's the thing that that's the thing that's going to carry the church on, right?
Right.
That's where true believing, suffering in His name, that's going to come back around. Okay, you had your king. Everything I told you would happen happened. You're miserable, and now you're crying out for me again.
Right. Right.
It's history.
Hey, just about 3 minutes ago, David texted me and said that your mic's not on or it's off. So are you sure you're still getting volume through there?
Yeah.
Even though,
I can see the meter moving when
All
you
right,
talk.
I figured.
And the lights on.
Okay.
So I'm gonna get batteries,
Okay.
and you're gonna entertain.
And I'm going to bring us to the next place here in the scripture, and that is people will be unloving, irreconcilable, malicious gossips, without self-control, brutal, and haters of good. Now, the unloving part is interesting here because everybody talks about love and how you're supposed to love, and we're supposed to be reconciling the nation and healing the nation and all these things. And listen, it was just as divided. The nation was just as divided for the last 4 years as it's probably going to be for the next 4 years, because people in general are unloving, irreconcilable, malicious gossips, without self-control, brutal, and haters of good. The difference here is that everybody has their own standard of good instead of one standard, and that's the standard of the scriptures. Everybody has their own definition for love, and that is, however they see fit. If, some people say, hey, do unto others as they do unto you, which is not the golden rule. The golden rule is do unto others as you would like for them to do, and as you would have them to do unto you. But this idea of unloving, I've just been thinking about this, and again, it goes back to this biblical standard. Jesus said, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. He also said, bless those who curse you. Now, if you're going to follow the way of Jesus, you got to figure out, by the power of God's Spirit, how you're able to do that. And I don't know of a political party, I don't know of anywhere in the entertainment industry, and I don't know of a lot of churches that are trying to figure out how we do that. Instead, we automatically see the opponent and we decide how we can either get rid of them, or how we can work around them, or how we can just, totally shove truth down their throat so that we win the argument against them. And I think we've missed the idea of what loving people means. It means sometimes suffering and going through that. I'm not saying you don't speak truth into those things. I'm not saying you don't get in people's face sometimes and say, hey, this is the truth. But I think we're missing the whole point, because Jesus was very clear. You pray for those who persecute you. You love those who spitefully use you. And you bless those who curse you, which means you do good to those who don't do good to you. And that is not something that's coming out of Washington. It's not something that's coming out of entertainment. It's not something that's coming out of a lot of the churches. Any thoughts on that?
What else is there to say? If we're not going to get that right, and if that's not going to mean anything to us in a way that causes us to live like Christ, then it's going to end up that way.
Right.
But we've seen it over and over again, just in biblical history, let alone go through recorded history. There seems to be a cycle of people suffer, pray, seek the face of God. He gives them blessing. This blessing gets squandered. Society falls and fails, becomes depraved.
Right.
And it starts over again.
Yeah.
It seems to be what we do.
Right. I was watching a a two-part series on Skywatch TV with the whole Tom Horn thing.
Yeah.
And they had a gentleman on there, and you know, you kind of got to take the good with the bad, but I don't know. There's something about those guys I really like. I mean, it's kind of...
No, I get it.
Their set's corny and different stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's something about them I really like because I think they're really seeking after it. But they were talking about like that whole thing, and they were just, you know, making the comment that unless the church, you see in times past that when things got the darkest, that's when the church seemed to find themselves in revival. And they were talking about how there's such a great opportunity right now for revival. But if revival doesn't come, then you might as well say goodbye to any kind of supernatural stuff that may happen to change the course of history, because we're like the last hope. The church is like the last hope if that's going to happen, because they were just making the point that in the past, when you see it in its darkest, then the church would, you know, have this revival, and then things would kind of change. And they said if that's going to happen, the church is going to have to wake up and have revival. So I don't know if that's true or not, but...
Well, I think that's I think that's saying the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's just they tend to come at it from a more charismatic, you know, viewpoint.
Right.
There's a lot of charismaticism there with those guys.
Yeah, right.
And there's you know, that's their point of view, but they're saying the same thing. They're coming to the same conclusion, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Right.
We're going to have to fall on our face and worship God. I mean, there's just no way around it. And, you know, unfortunately, I think we figure out how to do that again the hard way.
Yeah. Okay, let me just bring up the next part of the scripture text, and that is this. It says that people will be treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. Now, we've touched on this a little bit, but the conceited part is interesting, because conceited is even different than just kind of arrogant or boastful. Conceited is like, it's this whole idea that, listen, everybody gets a trophy. Nobody can really assess with any kind of rational thought who was the winner and who was the loser, so we all get a trophy, which helps everybody feel like they are the center of attention. And everybody has to feel like they're the center of attention, because we don't want anybody to feel any kind of shame or hurt or pain. And so that idea of conceited, you can see where almost all of us have bought into it, because we all want to be in the spotlight. Even if we're people that like the backstage, we still have this feeling of, I want to feel so special, and it's kind of, and it brings us to this place of conceited. So then I'm always looking in the mirror, and so that goes to physical stuff, but I think it runs deeper to that, to the heart, that I need to know that I'm special.
Yeah, I don't even think that it's necessarily always physical stuff, and
Right.
I think this ties together. We kind of never finished our conversation this morning about stories. You were talking about stories in the pulpit and how Jesus used stories to share. But one of the things I wanted to comment on, and I think this is where you were going with it when we were talking about our breakfast, Jesus' stories weren't about him.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, so I was in the grocery store the other day,
Right.
and I healed a blind man.
Yeah.
No, his stories always had to do with, could be John Q. Public, either a rich man, a poor man, you know, these groups of people.
Right.
Unless Jesus was a part of the story, like the story of Zacchaeus, which you've been going over, right?
Right.
So when we tell stories, I think it's very easy to... We were talking about our new illustrious vice president and how she sounds a lot like Hillary Clinton or Elizabeth Warren, where there's these over-the-top stories of like, that can't possibly be true
Yeah.
when you tell them.
Right.
Or, you know, we've heard those stories of somebody trying to make a point in a pulpit where you're just like, okay, there's embellishment there.
Yeah.
And Jesus never did that. We feel we need to, and I think this is related to what you're talking about being conceited.
Yeah.
We're making it about us,
Mm-hmm.
and then when we make it about us, we can't help but make it extravagant.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's why it's not a good analogy. And
Yeah.
that's why Jesus didn't do it that way.
Right.
It's the best way I could see.
Right. And I think what the church has missed, and again, we have bought into as a church, is that we believe there's something out there in the world, there's a person or there's a thing that will satisfy the longing in our hearts that says, I'm actually valuable and special. And so we search for it everywhere else except for in the person of God. And when we search for it everywhere else except in the person of God, we will never satisfy that longing. But when we find it in the person of God, not only will then we find real value and real meaning in life, but it's not a conceited thing. It actually reflects back to the glory and the praise of God, which is then in its rightful place. So when I find value in God, it becomes in its rightful place because now it is seen or manifests itself in praise and glory to Him. And that's the proper way. But in the world, we're searching after it, and it's still all about us. And if we find it, we need it to satisfy us. And you can't do that.
And that's what propels us to. That's what propels us to want the fancy car. Mm-hmm. We are looking for that thing that glorifies us.
Right.
Right. That's kind of what you're saying. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's I've got the best fancy gun, look at my new coffee machine, to whatever.
Right.
This is what our whole society does with everything.
Right.
Have you seen the commercial? There's now a company like a Wayfair, but it's called like Woosie. Everything's got these funny names now.
Goosey?
Like Woosie. Like Woosie or something.
Huh.
Or Moosey or Mossy or I don't remember what it's called. But you take a picture of your living room. Like the technology is really cool.
Yeah.
You take a picture of your living room.
Right.
And then you take their furniture and put it in there. But then they have people that'll help you. And so there's people in the commercial that literally say, I never thought my home would look like a magazine.
Wow.
But look at it.
Yeah.
And it's like, when did that matter?
Right.
Why did that become important? But that's what's important to them.
Yeah.
Like the guy who's got to buy the brand new Porsche.
Right.
And then show everybody it.
Yeah.
Right. So this is where we are with everything. We're there with literally everything.
Right. Speaking of that, would it be wise for me to buy a 5-year-old Tesla? Because I still won't be able to afford it. But if I could afford it, because if I buy a 5-year-old Tesla, the battery will only last 10 years.
Right.
Which means I only got 5 years left, and then I got to fork out another 10 grand for a battery. That's probably not a very good investment, right?
I don't know. How much is a Tesla? Do you know?
Well, base model's around 40 grand. And then if you want to get like a really expensive...
I didn't realize they were that inexpensive.
Yeah, the base model.
Okay.
But if you want to get really fancy, you can go like 109, 110,000.
Yeah, you can spend some money.
Yeah.
So listen, I guess if you're... I don't know how much you're buying this Tesla for. Everything to me it's mathematics.
Yeah.
So if you're buying it for $20,000 and you got to put $10,000 of batteries in it 5 years from now, it's probably not a great investment. But
Yeah.
I don't know the longevity of that car.
Well, I was going to say, unless it can last 20 years, then I might be all right.
Sure. If that car's going to last another 20 years, then you're winning.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know. I don't know that much about them. I'm starting to see them more and more, and that's why I was wondering how much they cost. And you can definitely tell. There's a fancy one, and then there's like, hey, I got one.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Because a couple times I'm like, oh, that's a Subaru. No, that's a Tesla.
No, that's a Tesla. You can tell Tesla, they don't have door handles.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's kind of cool.
It is very cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah. And I mean, most vehicles now you can start with your phone and all that stuff, so that's kind of old school now.
Yeah.
But the Tesla's got some neat features.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I talked to a gentleman who owns a Tesla, and he was working at a coffee shop, and he's probably making money on his computer, like, probably more in 10 minutes than I make in a month.
It's a Brian Regan skit?
Yeah, right,
I'm making
right.
money right now.
Yeah, I'm making money right now. So he's, working, and so he's talking to us about his Tesla and that, and he was explaining how, he can open the door from inside the coffee shop and start the car and all that stuff. This was like a few years ago. But then he told me about the braking system, and he said because of the torque and the quick down speed of the engine and stuff, that he said you almost hardly never have to replace the brakes because they don't have to really work that hard.
Yeah. This is the cool thing about the electric car.
Yeah.
So when you go to slow down, all you have to do is let the motor turn, and you're actually charging the batteries
Right.
while you're slowing down.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So if it weren't for friction, the electric car would be the perfect system.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you would put energy in, but then theoretically that energy would come right back into your batteries.
Yeah.
Because whatever it takes to go,
Right.
you'd have to slow down.
Right.
But we have friction, so there's constant loss. But yeah, it's a neat thing,
Yeah.
the dynamic brake dampening, da-da-da-da-da,
Yeah.
that goes in and associated with that. And I wonder what that does for like the driving experience, just as like a personal question.
Oh man. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, is
Yeah.
that something to get around where you got to learn it? Or,
Oh, I would think you would have to. At 3.9 or 3.6 seconds to 60, I'm thinking if you come up on an Amish buggy and you're kind of slowly
but
going.
then, all right, so what does that braking do then?
Oh, I know what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
like, you're used to applying so much force to brakes for the weight of the car.
Right.
But now the motor is sucking off energy and putting
Gotcha.
it into the batteries.
Yeah.
So what does that feel like?
Right. I see what you're saying for the braking. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the acceleration. Like, you better make sure you don't take out the back wheel of the Amish buggy because you'd have to learn that.
Yeah.
Because there's no vehicle on the road that'll get up that quick
Right.
to go around
I hit a
something.
buggy that way
Yeah. Oh, you did?
on prom night,
Really?
my junior year.
Wow.
I was coming onto Agler Road with, I had a 71 Chevelle,
Yeah.
and I just pounded it on a rainy day,
Uh-huh.
and the back end came around, and I wiped out the rear wheels of an
Oh, my.
Yeah, it was bad.
Everybody was fine, though.
Everybody was fine.
Yeah.
We lost the Jello salad. There was a Jello salad on the road, and they were very shaken up. But yeah, no, listen, you would have to learn how to handle that. That is some acceleration.
Right.
That's
And so,
monster.
yeah, and so see, here's the thing about life. Like, I don't think God wants us to not enjoy things. I don't think
I agree.
I think we should have fun and enjoy life and that. But we are living in a world where that is our life now. We have been sold a bill of goods.
We're adulterers.
Yes.
That becomes our idol.
Yes.
Yes.
And we are living in a world filled with idols. And it's everywhere, and the church has got to get serious. And I don't think the church can start pushing like the legalistic thing and tell people you can't have this, you can't do that anymore. I think we just got to get back to saying, God, how do you change our lives so that we're not lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant? And that's going to take you and I getting intimate with the Lord, asking His Spirit to change us and transform us, and that's one person at a time, one day at a time, but we got to get it done. We got to start doing this.
Yeah.
Because everybody's just soaking in this atmosphere of idolatry, and it's killing all of us.
Right. No, absolutely. And I don't know what that answer is either.
I just told you the answer, Matt.
I guess what I'm saying is like, how do you get it done? Because I struggle with it in my own life.
Yeah, gotcha.
Like, so who am I to run around and point fingers and go?
No, I hear you.
I don't mind identifying the problem,
Right.
but far be it for me to go, here's what you need to fix, Ted.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that guy.
Right. Well, that's part of the solution, right? Identifying the problem. But then I think the biggest part is, like the scriptures say, make sure you take the log out of your own eye before you try to take the speck out of your brother's eye, before you help your brother take the speck. So you can't even help your brother take the speck out until you get your log out. So literally, we all have to be looking in the mirror,
right,
and figuring out how do you change these things in me? Because
get our
I don't
individual specs out.
Right. And so here's the last part, and I just want to say this because I really, I hope the best. I've already prayed this year. I think I prayed for Trump maybe once or twice last year, or in the last 4 years. And I've already prayed once for the new administration, and hopefully I'll get a couple more times in. And I know the scriptures say to pray for those in leadership, and I do from time to time. But a lot of times I forget, I fail to, because I'm praying for so many people intimately in my life, and then I miss that. So God forgive me for not doing a better job of that. But so I forget. So I've already prayed about those things. But here's the thing that I struggle with, okay? And this is what I'm praying for. Verse 5. Holding to a form of godliness, although they have denied its power, avoid such men as these. So I think in our world and in our church, people have come to a place in their life where they're okay accepting a lower standard so that we can at least claim that somebody's kind of good out there. And so whenever anybody, sings Amazing Grace or says a prayer or quotes a Bible scripture text, we want to believe that they must be a pretty good person or they must be a Christian. And I want to say this, that not just people in the world, but people in the church today too, that we have done this. We have held on to a form of godliness. So we kind of take bits and pieces like sound bites and chunks, and we throw it out there as if we're godly people, and as we really pray. Like, how many people say we're praying for all the families that have died from COVID? No, you're not. You can't. There's no way you could pray for all those families,
Right.
number one. But, okay, I get the sentiment, and of course people are going to come back to me and say, well, Brian, you're criticizing and judging people. No, I'm just trying to assess. I'm not saying I'm any better than they are, and I'm not saying that they're beyond salvation or anything like that. What I am saying is this: we have a form of godliness, but we have denied the power of God to transform a life. And because of that, we have settled for a mediocre standard of Christianity. And now it's okay to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you're still okay because hey, everybody sins, everybody does that. And we're not raising up the bar and saying, no, this is what God has called us to, and we should be calling on God's Spirit to get us to that point because we've denied that power. So then, with that said, you have inaugurations, and it's not just this one that happened on Wednesday, but the one that happened 4 years ago and the one that happened 4 years ago before that. You have country and sometimes even secular rock music where someone might use a scripture text or add part of a Christian song into that, or they'll sing their secular music that talks about stuff that's just not godly, but yet then they'll make a Christmas holy album. You can't do that. Like, that's what I struggle with. So my prayer for the administration and for the other administration and for the other people, my prayer is salvation. God, would you open up their eyes that they would find Christ as their standard and they would find him as their salvation, because I think the world and even the church, we need to get a grasp on what it really means to know Christ, not this form of godliness, because the form of godliness, it denies the power of transformation. Any thoughts on that? I probably just made a lot of people mad at me.
I don't see how. I do see how. If you are one of those people that goes, oh, she's saying Amazing Grace, she must love Jesus. And, one of the favorite things in my house to do from my chair is shoot that right down and go, you don't know that person. They sing Amazing Grace, big deal. And to me, he's saying it at an out of context time.
Right.
So I don't think they know what the song means.
Right.
And these are the things that I don't have a problem pointing a finger at, especially if it's around my family, so that my family at least hears another opinion. And I guess that's the thing. We've become in love with the feelings. Mm-hmm. We want to feel warm and fuzzy. So that's why I don't want to go fight a war.
Right.
I don't want to be cold and in the woods.
Right.
Like, we want to believe people are good.
Yeah.
And doing things that are in our best interest.
Uh-huh.
And the fact of the matter is they're not.
Right.
The government doesn't care about you. They care about themselves.
Right.
The church really, I wonder if they care about you other than themselves. Mm-hmm. I mean, really is what we're saying.
Right.
And I think everybody needs to get a grip on that. Mm-hmm. And in our own way, we need to make things right with our Savior. And we need to go out and spread the gospel.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do it for us.
Yeah.
And we're not doing it.
Right.
You know, these are the hard truths.
Right.
And so, yeah, I guess if you think, when that's basically what you were saying, if that's going to tick people off, then let it tick them off.
Yeah. And I know this will be, controversial because some people say, no, I disagree, but there's no Republican, Democrat, patriot, whatever you call it, nobody that's going to be leader of the free world, if we can even call it the free world anymore, leader of the free world, and is going to bring unity among the people apart from the person of Jesus Christ and the standard of his truth.
Right.
Because it's just not going to happen.
Again, that post was never for that job.
Right.
That was never what that post was set for. Now, if it was a result of the person on that post, chances are it's because they were a godly person,
right,
who actually cared about people,
yeah,
and outflowed this idea of unity.
Right.
But to randomly put someone in there and expect there to be unity depending on the person that you put in there,
right,
you're kidding yourself.
No. And then what happens, and which we saw, maybe the last 4 years we saw it. We may very well see it. We may very well see it the next 4 years or however long. But what happens then is it points people then there's us and there's them.
Yes.
And the only way for us to have unity is to get rid of them.
So I think that's a whole different topic for another Friday.
It probably is. Yeah.
Because very simply, I still think that there is that.
Yeah.
I think there is us and them. There are those of us that believe there's a God. They believe that he hung the world, and they believe that they owe him what he requires.
Yeah.
And then there is man, and that there is no God. And I do believe that we fundamentally have just put into office the love of man.
Yeah,
But there are two sides. I'm sorry.
Right.
You
But when you say that, the way you said it, it actually becomes even more clouded, because when you just use the word God, there's still even a more distinct us and them, and that is there are a lot of people who believe there's a God, but there's also a them that believes that God came down and put on flesh and died on our behalf.
Yeah.
So there's a them.
Well, okay.
So it even gets more cloudy.
No, now, so what you're saying is there's three sides.
Well, yeah. So there's the atheist.
There's the atheist. There's man in science and the love of man.
Yeah, and then there's a pluralist.
Then there's the people that know there's a God, but they don't know what to do with him. Mm-hmm. And then there's the Christian.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I guess. Yeah.
Or they do know what to do with them, but they've created their own. Yeah.
Or whatever. Or that's where you're going to lump the people that think that the Muslim God is the same as the Christian God is the same as the Buddha God.
Right.
They're going to fit there.
Right.
Yeah, because there at least is a spiritual angle.
Yeah.
So I guess to clarify my statement, I believe that what we've put in our leadership right now is devoid of God. Mm-hmm. Like if they could have responsibility to know Creator and quote unquote trust in science, that's what we have right now.
Yeah. And I will say this, and I would think you would agree with me because there was no signs of that, maybe a sign leaning towards it, but the last administration, there was a thought about God, but not specifically Jesus Christ in that viewpoint. Because obviously that was still that administration was still godless.
Probably.
Or what it says here, a form of godliness. There was a form of godliness.
Yeah.
There was a speaking about it, but there wasn't a specific direction that Jesus is the way.
No, yeah, I think you're right.
And there might have been some leaning, like some people were like, hey, Trump was talking about Jesus the other day. And you're like, oh, but, a lot of people talk about that.
Right.
So maybe there was a leaning, maybe there was a hope, maybe there was a going for that, but whatever.
Yeah.
But you can't, I'm telling you, we got to encourage people. You can't look to politics. You can't look to people out there.
And that's just it. I feel, I know we're going to run over here, but, I feel, unfortunately, there were a lot of people who wanted to jump off their roof on Wednesday when QAnon didn't come through.
Right.
And Trump didn't figure something out.
Right.
And I think there were people that really were thinking, like, up until the last minute, he's going to do something.
Yeah.
And it never happened. It never came because it wasn't there. And we made him a god, you know what I mean, in our lives. And time is going to move on now. We're on to something different, which really is an amazing thing about our country.
Yeah. It is.
Different than any other country in the world.
That's true. That is true.
And
I really, to be honest, even with what I feel is so corrupt, I still don't think I'd want to live anywhere else.
no, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, and I don't want to lose the hope. Like you said earlier, you prayed for our current leader, you prayed for our past leader. We need, but like, we need to pray for all of our leaders.
Yeah.
Well, we have county leaders.
Right. Right.
We have county leadership, and whatever. I'm not going to dither down another silly path, but I think we should pray for all of our leaders.
Yeah.
And I think that our country still has a hope. Hey, we're going to try this again in 4 more years.
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's pray that God gives people direction in their individual lives
Right.
to follow Him
Right.
and serve Him, and if we can get that happening,
Right.
the rest of this will take care of itself.
Yeah, and what you just said, I think, is powerful in the sense that I've heard a lot of people, from a political standpoint, say, if you're gonna start a movement, you're gonna do something, do it at a local level, because then it will trickle itself
Yes.
down. Well, I think same thing in the church.
Yes.
We got to do this locally.
It's the 90%. We talked about this last year. It's the 90% of churches are small churches.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing fact?
Right. Right.
Because we do good in our local communities.
Right.
The best way we serve ourselves is to serve our local community.
Right.
And that's not to say that it's not cool that the main Nazarene mothership doesn't have missionaries, and that's all great.
Right.
But on an individual, personal level, meeting with and this is where the churches are going to have to reopen back up if we want to keep the church.
Yeah.
Because we got to meet with each other. We
Yeah.
got to shake hands, break bread, talk
do.
to one another.
We do.
Counsel one another.
Right.
Read the Bible together.
Right.
These are the things that are going to go away.
Yeah.
That when they're gone, it's going to be felt.
Right. Right. No, I agree. I agree. We do need to be back together again. And so I hope that if you don't have a local church, isn't it weird how we always have some kind of segue to finally finish that off? It almost is perfect. So if you don't have a local church and you're looking for one and you're living in the, Northeast Ohio area, within, however far you want to drive from Burton, we have services here at 11 o'clock on Sundays. We have prayer meeting, which is, I think, probably one of the most powerful services, because we call on God to do what only He can do in those services. I mean, we do on Sundays as well, but prayer meeting is designated specifically for that, to just seek the Lord's face. And that's on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock, and so it's here at 13925 Stanley Drive in Burton, Ohio. Or you can watch us online if you choose to do it that way, and you can just get us on our Facebook channel or our YouTube channel and do that online as well. And I think with that said, we're probably out today, right, Matt?
We're out. We are out of time. Are we gonna box it up?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So you guys have a great rest of the weekend, and maybe we'll see you Sunday, either in person or online.
Awesome. Everybody have a great week, and we'll catch you hopefully next week.